Welcome back to the Top Notch Documentaries YouTube channel. In today's Israel Keyes video, I present to you a new possibility in this case. I hope you enjoy. The Israel Keyes case is full of unknowns, whether that be how many victims he had, or to what extent was he being truthful in the interrogations. I love to bring in actual facts into my content, but like with these unknowns, much is left up to speculation and theorising. One of these points of speculation is that Israel was not alone whilst conducting shady activity. A man called in to the FBI report tip line about a possible sighting of Israel in late May, early June of 2006. He was active in the geocaching community and spent much of his time in the woods. He and his wife had been walking into a forest at the Lower Wolf Trailhead just on the outskirts of Newport, Washington. Although this trail is near town, it is in deep woods. The man and his wife encountered two young men walking out of the woods. They had what was described as strange looks on their faces, staring straight ahead, not making eye contact or even acknowledging the couple in any way. The man, who was the leader out of the two, who he suspected to have been Keyes, was around 5'11", with dirty brown, straight long hair. The encounter gave the couple a strange feeling as the vibe received made them feel like the two men were unsavoury characters. People who you typically don't run into in the woods. Upon leaving the trail and reaching the parking lot, the couple saw the men get into an older, rusted brownish coloured vehicle. The man actually returned to the trail the following day for whatever reason and noticed the same vehicle with only one man, whom he believed to have been Keyes, sitting inside. The reason for submitting the tip that he gave was because he believed that the area was a place where hiding or stashing a body would be easy. Keyes was in Washington State during this sighting, however if this encounter was actually him may never be known. Another tip comes from someone in Vermont. At the time of the encounter, the person had reported it just based on how bizarre it was. Lieutenant Blank, I just spoke to Detective Blank by phone and he suggested I email you. I just want to make sure the info I have, assuming it's pertinent, doesn't slip through the cracks. The particulars of Keyes frequenting isolated dog parks and cemeteries for victims and burying kill kits near the Winooski River made me remember a bizarre encounter in 2010 that everyone else chalked up to marijuana harvesting, but I always believed it was something more serious. I don't want to be a pest and I'm not looking for publicity. In all likelihood, you already have this info, but I'll feel better if I know you do. After reading about the Keyes case in national news sites last Sunday, I called the FBI Albany office with this info, and then as I thought some more, emailed Blank, whom I have dealt with before. I'm reproducing here the email I sent to Blank Monday night. I wish I could recover my original email to him, but my system keeps email for only 24 months. I have some additional thoughts to add, which I will do at the end of this segment, not the least of which is that if this was a bona fide sighting of Keyes, then who was the other runner and where is he now? Chief, you may remember I wrote you in early October 2010 reporting a most unusual encounter in the woods of what was then the Patchen Road Dog Park. I was surprised by two men, the physicality of one consistent with the photos in the paper of Israel Keyes, who were running cross-country from the direction of the Greenmount Cemetery through Centennial Woods. One was carrying a shovel and the other a rake. Although I can't retrieve my original email, I seem to recall conveying to you the impression I had then that there was a bank bag or a body buried out there somewhere. At the time you thought what I had seen probably had more to do with marijuana harvest season, although I've never seen anyone in Vermont get that worked up about marijuana. I wonder now if, perhaps, given the time of year, they were simply digging a hole before the ground froze, and perhaps they returned at a later date to bury something. The paper says the courier's bodies have not yet been found. I've read that Keyes would often bury his kill kits near a cemetery. It would certainly throw off a scent dog searching for human remains. Blank might remember me telling him about the runners. He might also know the identity of a dog walker who was always at the park with a brindle Akita mix. If you can find my original email to you, you'll see I identified him as someone who observed the runners retrieving a duffel bag which they had not had when I saw them, and jumping into a white Toyota and peeling out onto Patchen Road / Grove Street. It's hard to recall everything more than 2 years later, but I haven't forgotten the expression on those runners' faces. I interpreted their behaviour as a major, fearful consciousness of guilt about something for which they didn't want to get caught. I can't shake the feeling that they knew they had done something horribly wrong and were putting as much distance between them and what they had done as they possibly could. Here are some additional thoughts which I believe were in the email I sent Blank in 2010. The taller runner, who resembles the photos of Keyes in the paper, was wearing a black and blue checked wool hunter's coat. The shorter runner was wearing a brown corduroy Carhartt type coat. They were both wearing jeans. One carried a shovel, the other a rake. I saw them for a split second from a distance of about 30 feet. They were so intent at watching the ground in front of them that they did not look around, or they would have seen me for sure. They were running through dense, difficult woods, ignoring the well-groomed trails that any previous visitor to the area would have known led directly and comfortably to the parking lot. These two were not out for a fun run. They appeared to be grim and determined, not full of fear or terrified, but intensely serious about putting some distance between them and wherever they were coming from. It appeared to me that they didn't want to get caught. Based on their trajectory when I saw them, they were coming from the vicinity of the Greenmount Cemetery. When I first entered the woods, I noticed that someone had been digging divots and small holes all along the trail. They were reasonably fresh, no one had walked over them at the time, and I figured it was a child playing with a shovel. It's highly likely that I was alone in the woods with those two runners for 20 minutes or so. These two encounters raised the possibility of Israel having a partner in some shady activity, and that is all assuming that this was him. Like I said, much of this case is speculation at this point. If this was Israel, then what was he doing? Digging up cache weapons from past crimes, or something much darker? I don't know what to truly make of these sightings. I don't want to rule them out, and I still feel confident that Israel worked alone. Well, when it came to his kidnappings, bank robberies and murders at least. Who's to say that these strange events were criminal actions? And if there was criminal activity taking place, I just don't see the possibility of murder being involved. If it was Israel and a companion, it would make much more sense that it was some type of smaller crime. Whatever that could be remains unclear, although it would seem reasonable to suspect that it could involve firearms. What are your takes on this possibility? Did Israel have a companion accompanying him for his shady activities? Let me know in the comments section below. This has been the Israel Keyes video on a new possibility in this case. As always, thank you for watching.